AT&T is gathering its big-name partners, including WarnerMedia, Google, Facebook, and the NBA to discuss innovations in 5G technology and how they will be able to deliver this to consumers. One of the panelists at this event is actor and investor Ashton Kutcher, who I spoke with earlier today. He explained the importance of 5G in the next economy and much more. Take a listen.
I think 5G is going to be extraordinarily influential in building the next economy. Some estimates say that 5G can drive up to like $13 trillion into the economy by over the next several years. I think what happens is like you when you unleash the speed and the power of low latency, a high bandwidth, and consistent connectivity into the mobile world. I think there's an explosion of innovation that can take place as a result of that. We're talking about millions upon millions of devices coming online that weren't historically online, and all of that variable sensor data and capacity for processing. It creates a boom in manufacturing efficiency, supply chain efficiencies. I think we're already starting to see, some of the early effects of virtual work, virtual telemedicine, and then on top of it, you have AR and VR and all that becomes possible with 5G as a result of that. So I think we're in for a pretty extraordinary growth curve ahead as a result of what 5G provides.
And we know some of the biggest companies out there will have the means to invest in their own 5G infrastructure to build their businesses. But as someone who supports the little guy and works with smaller startups, how important is it to open 5G to everyone and give access to a wide variety of people?
Well, I think that's really the key, right? Like my dad lives in Center Point, Iowa, and he, in the middle of the pandemic while in quarantine, finally got connected to high-speed internet at his house in rural Iowa. And so the potential for 5G to expand into these rural environments, I think is key to it working. Not to mention the fact that one of the key drivers for 5G, one of the key potentials of it, is unleashing the power of 5G in agriculture in order to create water efficiencies on farms, increase crop yields. And so being able to drive 5G into these rural environments will create connectivity that has never existed before. And as we saw once again during the pandemic, not having connectivity in these variable rural environments causes kids to fall behind, because when we had to go to virtual school and they didn't have the capacity to be online, it created quite a bind. And so I think 5G can be at the forefront of solving a lot of these educational problems, a lot of the health issues that we have, and just improving access generally, which I think is just fundamental.
I want to ask you about one area of the economy, a growing and budding one that certainly will rely on super fast technology in the future, and that's cryptocurrency. I know you've been an investor in cryptocurrency. It has had a rough go around of late. Are you still bullish on cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I think if we look historically, these kinds of corrections have consistently happened over the life cycle of crypto, where it sort of goes through a bull market and then basically settles down for a while and then picks back up. And I truly believe that I think cryptocurrency is here to stay. I certainly believe that smart contracts are here to stay. And in fact, if we look at the potential of blockchain relative to 5G, when we contemplate security around all these IoT devices that are being connected to the network, one of the potential plays in order to create security around all these IoT devices is to utilize blockchain in an effort to create a more secure network, and in an effort to have distributed computing and distributed databases that power the system. So so I think blockchain is here to stay. I think cryptocurrencies are here to stay. In fact, in a couple weeks, my wife and I are launching an NFT called Stoner Cats. That is an animated project that she's been working on for a while, and I'm helping her out with and playing a part in. So I'm very bullish on the market. I think that it's here to stay, and I think that anybody who doesn't get involved or is not involved is going to miss a potential life cycle that is very interesting, and look back in 10 years and say, oh, I should have done that.
So let's talk about NFTs more then. I think the big question is, how do you know what is valuable and what doesn't have value? What might be a scam in this space? They quickly came onto the market. I think a lot of potential investors still have questions. What would you tell them in deciphering between what is of value and what isn't in that space?
I think that it's about what's valuable to you. And that should be fundamental and core to any investment decision that anyone is making. And I don't necessarily think about NFTs as an investment. Some people do. That's just not how I think about the space. I think about it like art. The way I like to describe it is, I've contemplated, what makes a Warhol print valuable. You have these Warhol original prints. There's X number of those Warhol prints that exist, and what makes it valuable is the certification that Warhol print was created by Andy Warhol at this period of time, and it has been certified as such. And it's what makes that print more valuable than a poster that you could go and buy on any shop anywhere, that can be replicated time and time again. And so if you think about that in the digital domain, and you go, okay, well, let's say there's a handwritten letter by Thomas Edison, and somebody might pay for that handwritten letter by Thomas Edison, and then you get this physical object of this handwritten letter. Well, how does that, when we're creating objects in the digital domain, how do you get Steve Jobs' original email on a Mac address, on a .Mac address? How do you buy that? You can buy a handwritten letter by Thomas Edison, but how do you buy that Steve Jobs' original email on a .Mac address? You can't, because it lives in the digital domain. But through NFTs, what you can do is you can certify that this is the original of that. And by certifying that that's the original of it, suddenly these objects that are virtual objects can have true ownership with the consensus that everybody agrees, well, no, that is the original, and that's the individual that owns the original. And so when we think about that from a graphic art perspective, when we think about that from any virtual object, whether it's video, whether it's music, whether it's money, these are all virtual objects that are traded. How do you authenticate that it's real? That's what an NFT does. Mm-hmm. And when these items are scarce, they could become more valuable.
All right, we got to give it up to Ashton Kutcher, actor and investor, for explaining all things NFTs, what he's watching in the technology space.